Hello and welcome to Brewskis and Housekeys. We are here in Old Town Arvada at our Remax Alliance office. And I am Nicole Kostelecki.
And with you as always, Nick Papantonakis, here to talk about all kinds of fun stuff today.
Yes, it's going to be fantastic.
I think so. And October is right around the corner. So, I think we have taken a week off. So thank you for being patient with us because all parts of this podcast took a little trip. So tell us about your trip.
Yes, I went to San Diego for my friend's wedding. It was awesome.
My happy place.
I didn't see any of San Diego. I will say, well, okay, that's not true. We went to a couple places like by the pier, but really it was mainly all about the wedding weekend and it was super fun. So, good people.
The few pictures I saw on Facebook looked like a good time.
We did. We had a great time.
The bride looked like a hoot.
She is the best. I love her. A hoot.
I think the term is hoot.
Danny is the absolute best. Love her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a great time.
And our podcast producer, Nico, took a hiatus from beer to travel to the home of bourbon whiskey.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Gotta
say it that way, though.
Louisville.
The second L's are important.
L-O-O,
Louisville. Did I do it right?
The S is silent.
There's
That's
actually
what
a lot of silent letters and some
extra.
I found that out. You get corrected by people.
Yeah.
It is not Louisville.
Don't call it that.
They won't say anything if you say Louisville, though.
Louisville is what I've always said, but not Louisville.
They'll leave you alone.
I feel like
it
sounds weird if I say it that way. I feel like I'm imitating
or
something.
that you've had too much bourbon, actually.
Oh,
Louisville.
maybe that's where it comes from.
Louisville. Might be an additional podcast, an offshoot, a spin-off podcast.
Oh, what kind?
Anything to do with bourbon.
Oh, bourbon.
And trips. Yes.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Bourbons and backyards.
There we go.
Love.
The idea, Fountain. Absolutely fantastic.
And you, Nick, where'd you go?
We took a little camping trip up just outside Estes Park. Actually, my wife and my daughter and the dog and myself. And we planned to have 2 days out there in it was just in Allen's Park is the little area outside Estes Park. And the first night was so windy and so cold that we had tents blowing over and all kinds of stuff. So we only camped one night, and then we went into Estes Park instead and got a hotel room and ended up just staying there the second night. So
I think that makes sense.
It was.
You all
it
guys
was a
were
lot.
probably all cuddled up.
We were, and it wouldn't. The cold is fine. The cold is one thing we can do that, but like the tent
wind.
physically blowing over, kind of did it for all of us. So that was enough. One night was good, and we were happy to have a hotel bed and a shower. So
I bet
that worked out better.
Sense.
Yeah.
But yes, it is October coming up soon. How were the leaves? I was going to ask.
Oh, okay. So we got there in a super lucky time because there were only a couple campsites left, and there were aspens and pines around us, and the aspens were already yellowing. So I think probably like in the next week, we're talking the beautiful like burst of color is going to be happening up there.
They weren't quite there yet?
Not quite. There was a lot of yellow tinted green going on in those leaves. So that it was starting, but not really there yet. But guaranteed it's going to be gorgeous in the next couple of weeks. So, but it was already packed because I think people were trying to get ahead of it or anticipate it. So,
well, you never know exactly when they're going to change. I feel like I've tried it and then you're like, oh, they're not there. And then all of a sudden you go up a week later and they're all completely gone.
Well, and talking with the people that when we were staying in Estes Park that night, talking with like the person at the front desk of the hotel and a couple other people we kind of ran into, they were saying that it seemed like it was changing faster than normal this year. And I was like, really? It didn't seem that way, but they're up there all the time, so they know. But apparently they're concerned that it's going to be way too fast and they're not going to get a lot of time with the changing of the leaves and all that. So who knows?
Who knows?
Well, in front of us, we have some special treats today, courtesy of Brewery Rickoli. And Nicole, you've been in there.
I have.
Recently.
Yeah, I go there quite a bit because it's pretty close to my house. But it's a cool little brewery. We had an event there with the Local Works Committee I'm on. So we did a beer tasting and a brewery tour for the community, which
Nice.
was really awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's called Live Local, so it's fun. We do like those little events kind of in a few different places. But we went to Rickoli and they did the tour. It's not the biggest brewery. So the owner, his name's Rick, and he used to work at Rock Bottom, and he does a great job. And all of their beers are actually gluten removed too.
Which is kind of
Interesting.
awesome and kind of niche, right? I mean, it's not a lot of breweries are doing that. So there's one or two that do.
There's a couple
gluten free completely, but I mean, that's very unique.
And they still taste. They're really good. It still has all the flavor of a beer that has gluten.
Yeah,
so.
you wouldn't know if you didn't know, you wouldn't know.
No, I had to double check. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's
it tastes really good. What's happening?
Yeah. So it's a cool spot. They'll do like live music every once in a while. And like a comedy night as well.
Oh, nice.
But I like to go check it out. It's a nice little brewery.
Nice.
It's right off Wadsworth. And there is construction kind of going on Wadsworth, which has been a royal pain.
Yes, it has.
Lately.
Yes, it has.
But I definitely suggest looking at it, checking them out.
Cool little place. They've been there for a little while too, and it's not a huge space, but man,
Have you been in there?
I've only driven by.
Okay.
And
you should stop
I've driven by way
next
too many times to have not gone in by now. So
Yes.
that's shame on me, I say. But definitely worth checking out, especially after tasting these, because this is my first endeavor with tasting their beer too. So we have 2 different size glasses for those of you keeping an eye on the videos. And that is by design, because one of these beers is a little bit headier and higher on the ABVs.
What's the name of that one?
That one would be the Enormous Richard, which is in the little glass here. That
Cheers.
is the sound of an Enormous Richard being popped open. And this is a double cream ale that is surprisingly easy to drink for an 8% beer. Usually when you get higher alcohol content, you end up with a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of like too much pininess from the hops, or it's like a barley wine where it's super sweet.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have that.
I like it. It's delicious. It's pretty smooth. It kind of tastes like a Belgian style to me.
Yeah.
Is what I taste, like a Tripel or a
And
Duvel.
possibly the best name of a beer that we've tasted so far on this podcast.
It's pretty funny. I'm
No
pretty
offense
sure
to any of the
I'm
others,
turning
but
red right now.
Enormous Richards for everybody, I think. And then what's the other one?
So this one is the Totally Eye-P.A. So
And
it's at 6.5%, 65 IBU. Just a pretty straightforward IPA.
Yeah. It's got that kind of bitter finish to it, and it's
almost a little more maltier than other IPAs.
I could get
like
too.
that actually.
Yeah.
It's really nice. It'd be a good winter drinking IPA.
See, we're changing into fall, so we're going from a cream ale to this. That's perfect. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's not to love. So worth checking them out for sure. I will be on that list. I will go check them out because this beer is delicious. So why the heck not?
Yeah. They have a good Pilsner too. I like that one. And an Oktoberfest right now, which that one was my favorite that I tried the other day. So
what's it like in there? Is it big?
No, small brewery. So it's like they have kind of like bar seating, and then probably like I'd say 10 spaces on the bar, and then there's maybe 6 tables, kind of some high top, some low top. They have games in there, and then they have a little stage set up on one of the corners, like little. I mean, enough for a few people.
Live music and comedy.
Well, live music and the comedy acts. Yeah.
Nice. So
no food. Just like if you want to order things in, you can, but they usually have popcorn.
Nice.
Yeah.
So small brewery, Enormous Richard. I think that's our takeaways. That's my takeaway, at least right now. I think that's the last joke I'll make on that too. We'll see. We're gonna see. Actually, I don't know. We got time. And you guys are already listening, so it is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
All right, into today's topic.
Yep. So we are talking about house hacking.
House hacking?
Yeah. What does that even mean?
I don't even know what that is.
No, we're going to talk about kind of how you can use real estate as an investment. And there's a few different ways that you can do it, just as far as, buying real estate and seeing how you can make your money back from it. So that's what we're talking about today.
Kind of that most common concept is, I just say my dad would always say this to me not because he's in real estate, but because he's a dad, that, if you want to have a good investment, invest in real estate. Buy a home, live in the home, but you're gaining equity. And that's what most people think of when they think of investing in real estate, I think, right out of the chute. But we're going to talk today about a handful of other ways that you can do on top of that, that you can do this to generate potentially more income for yourself.
Correct. So let's get started.
First things first, we want to talk about kind of the concept of if you do buy that first home, or maybe it's not your first home, and you end up buying it and then having, if you're a single person or a couple and you wanted to have roommates, well, that's a potential for that income.
Right.
And
you can rent like one room out or two.
Yeah. Help defer some of that cost of the mortgage. And that's really kind of that first and foremost thing you're trying to cover in any of these scenarios. A quick story about that. Actually, I've got two friends that are brothers that have been doing this for the last 3 years now, that invest in a property one a year, but their whole goal is they buy it with the plan to have at least one of them live in it. So it's going to be a primary residence.
Okay.
That the first one they bought, they both moved into it. It was their primary residence. They were allowed to use the financing that you get to buy a primary residence. Investment financing from a lender requires a lot higher down payment.
Right.
And so for them, they're able to do it and finagle a little bit better. It's all legal. And, they're using it as their primary residence. They have to live there for at least
2 years.
2 years. So after year one, they bought a second property and one of them
moved into the other one.
Yep. So then they both had roommates in their places. And so now they are able to fully rent out the first one. And this year 3, we're working on buying the third. And then one of them is going to move into that and keep that as it. So they're going to continue to do that. But so the first 2 are now full on investment properties with renters in them. And the third one is going to be their like move in and then have roommates. So you have this opportunity to cover the mortgage and then maybe a little bit more and end up doing what investors love to talk about, which is cash flowing and actually having a little bit of money come down to the bottom line. So that's kind of that concept of living with roommates. That's one way you can really, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think
do it a
that's
little differently.
Awesome. So another way is to just buy an investment property. Well, I guess they are kind of doing this too now with their first properties that they bought, but just buying a property to rent out. And now you can either do short-term rental or long-term rental, and that varies based on a few different things. So it could either be location. Another thing is what the regulations are in the city. Like I know where I am in Wheat Ridge, you can't do short-term rentals unless you live there.
Short-term rental meaning?
Airbnb, VRBO.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you can't just do like 3 days at a time. So it really is very dependent. You have to really look at each little city and each little spot to double check. So that's one thing. And then also, cost, demand in that area are other things to look at. So a couple things with that. It's nice because you have someone covering your costs of the mortgage for the most part, as long as you get people, moving. And then also the thing is, being a landlord isn't necessarily for everyone.
That's very true.
Yeah. So, or doing the short-term rental thing, that's not necessarily for everyone either. And so you can hire property management companies if you wanted to, for them to be able to look over your properties, especially if you get a bunch of them.
Yeah.
If you have like 10, you might want someone to be doing that for you.
Boy,
even if you had one.
It's a sweet, sweet problem to have.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be very nice. And same with short-term rentals. They have the Airbnb, the VRBO that will help you market it, but they also take a little bit of a fee.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, in Colorado, because that's where we are, right? I think it is a desirable thing to be able to do is own even a short-term rental, because there's so many areas to visit in Colorado that, especially where we're at, just outside of the Denver area in Arvada, we're close enough to the mountains that it's a nice place to be able to, stay and then get up to the mountains, or stay and get down to Denver. And so the opportunities are there, I think, in a place like this.
They are. I have some clients that are looking into it right now and just kind of trying to find the exact right location that is good for them to be able to get that cash moving.
Love it.
Get enough, occupancy throughout the year. And then they want it here too because of the fact that they can kind of keep an eye on it. People do buy those Airbnbs in like other states.
Which that's not for everybody either. Some people are all about it. We have an agent in this office who, had just bought one out of state not that long ago. And so, for some folks, that's right up their alley. I like the idea of being close by.
Yeah, so you can check on it if you need to.
Yeah,
like
not
in between
paying someone to do that too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So.
It just depends on your wants, I guess.
Yeah, it depends.
It depends. It's one of our favorite terms. Another opportunity. So kind of along the same lines of the having roommates, being able to buy a multi-family or multi-unit building, and we're not talking apartment building with, 200 apartments in it. We're talking a duplex or triplex or quadplex or whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of those opportunities where you can, or sometimes there's the single family home that has a separate entrance to the basement kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Those are opportunities to live in one spot and rent out the other. If you buy a triplex, you can live in one and rent out the other two. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden those are,
all of a sudden you're paying for your mortgage with the rent that is coming in.
And maybe then some. You're actually making some money on it. And that I think that's probably the ideal situation for most people that are doing that. So, that's there again. You are a landlord at that point, so it's not for everybody. So there are some pros and cons to each of these things that we're bringing out.
Sometimes if you live there too, it's a little bit easier to keep an eye.
Totally.
As
opposed to being an absent kind of landlord. Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think,
but you don't want to overstep your boundaries.
Well, it's true too. We did talk about fun neighbors right before we started recording, but we won't get into that. But the other option is, as I talked about before, with that primary residence financing, it doesn't always apply when you're doing something like a multifamily, but it could. That's definitely a pick up the phone, talk to your lender, and figure out the most logical financing setup for you if you're going to go after something like that, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. So the last thing that we want to talk about, a way to invest in real estate, is flipping homes. So this isn't necessarily for everyone. I mean, you need to be a little bit handy.
A little bit savvy, yep.
Yeah, or have a little bit extra cash to hire someone to be able to do it. But honestly, it's a great way to do it quick. So if you have some capital to put into a home, the idea is to buy low, fix it up, and sell for the top dollar and be able to make your money back on that. So it's not for everyone, but I do think it's a great opportunity.
Well, some people turn it into their full-on business.
It is, yeah. I have friends that do that. And that's what they do, and they're great at it.
And that's the difference, is that there's those out there that are great at it, and those out there that
you don't want to put lipstick on a pig.
That's the term, and it really, you can tell when it's happening.
You really can. You can tell if they haven't put in the necessary steps to make that house a good house. Like, make sure you double check, like AC and a furnace, all the big ticket items.
And I can say this because
plumbing.
I won't name names or addresses, but there was one on my street about a year ago that lady lived in it since it was built in the 60s. She moved to be closer to family because she was by herself. And an investor bought it. Clearly pumped too much money into it because when they put it back on the market, it was so overpriced for the neighborhood that it sat and it sat and it sat. And they ended up lowering the price by overall a good chunk. I want to say about 12% in total from start to finish. Okay. It sold, but while it was on the market, my wife and I happened to set up a showing just to go look at it. And you could see the corners that were cut, and it's just a shame, So,
well, that's what I'm saying. It's not for everyone, but you actually can. I mean, if you're savvy when it comes to purchasing, and then when it comes to doing the renovations, like, honestly, it could be a great business for you. It has to be for the right person.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it was your idea to kind of, if you're thinking about it, get into it with your own home that you have now.
Yeah, that's like what I'm doing. I mean, I'm kind of doing that with my house, although I'm also becoming attached to it. So I don't know if I could just sell it. But yeah, if if it's something maybe you want to do, try doing some of those little renovations and just slowly make your house perfect, and then for you, and then you can sell it.
100%.
Maybe.
And we've had episodes where we've talked about that. So I think that's a piece that you can start with if this is something you're dabbling in. You know?
As you should anyways.
Yeah.
Build that equity.
And let it be the house you want to live in while you're living there. I think that's an important one too. So I think our lesson to be learned from this week is that investing in real estate is a very smart way to diversify the portfolio.
If you have the means, honestly, it's a great way.
It's definitely a relatively, I know you'll hear a lot in the news, but it's a relatively stable, way to invest your money too in the long run, for sure.
100%.
So that does it for us on this episode. But thank you all, as always, for listening. Thanks, big thanks to Brewery Rickoli for everything that we got to enjoy here today. And then definitely, I will go check them out. I will be there, I promise. We'll come see you, my family and I. And yeah, as always, if you like whatever we did today or any of these episodes.
Can we reach a goal?
Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah, we did!
We do need to talk about that. Yes. As of today, when we are recording this podcast, which we won't say the date because it doesn't matter, that we hit our 100th download. Now, that's important. That's significant.
That's pretty cool.
That rocks. I think we deserve a little toast for that.
I think we should too.
Hot diggity day, man. That's huge. Yeah. So let's keep that up. Thank you for the support. Keep supporting. Click the subscribe button on whatever outlet you are watching or listening on. And
keep downloading.
Keep showing us love. And we are talking. The website is live. I forgot to mention that. And we'll make sure Nico maybe throws that up at the end along with all of our goodies. And definitely we're talking about maybe doing some merch eventually. So it could be kind of fun too. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome.
In the meantime, thank you as always to the team, our team, us, Nico, Nicole.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.